When we think of anything related to gunpowder or weaponry, we automatically think back to a great action movie we saw the other day or a war we have been catching up with on the news. Since early as 800 CE, gunpowder has been used as a very destructive tool. Its development has had grotesque and beautiful consequences, and has shown to be helpful and very harmful.
Chinese Taoist alchemists were the major force behind the early invention of gunpowder. At first, the alchemists were looking for a form to grant everlasting life or immortality, and the irony of it all would be that they created a new form of destruction and death. Soon the Chinese would begin experimenting with gunpowder-filled bamboo shoots, which were placed on arrows as an idea of new weaponry. After using this new technology for a while, the Chinese discovered that the tubes were able to launch on their own with the escaping gas, thus the rocket was born.
With the rocket, the Chinese technology evolved into pyrotechnic tools. As they learned how to control the amount of time the rocket had to be in the air, they also learned things like adding color, mostly golds and whites. These rockets were the first forms of fireworks that we now know of today. The Chinese gave meaning to fireworks as they scared off evil spirits during significant events like weddings and funerals. They were also used to scare off invading forces.
The Chinese used gunpowder in defense from invading forces. The weapon the Chinese used was an arrow shaped like a dragon head that was rocket-powered, in which they shot at the Mongols. Seeing the Chinese way of defense, the Mongols soon adopted this weaponry and began using it in many battles. As the Mongols progressed over into Europe, so did the expansion of gunpowder. In Europe during this time, they had knights that wielded swords until they witnessed the Mongols with their rocket-powered arrows. The Europeans adopted this new technology as soon took their own spin on it, making guns such as muskets and heavier artillery like cannons.
Europeans began using guns more and more throughout wars. An untrained soldier with a gun could easily bring down a knight due to a knight's armor not being designed to be bulletproof. Not to mention the fact that a cannon could obliterate a fortress wall in a matter of seconds. As Europeans began using guns instead of swords, European feudalism was no more. Europe's form of defense became men that learned how to use this weaponry with expertise.
As time went on, Europeans began to feel the need to expand, and so an expedition to finding a new route to Asia began. To ensure the safety of these explorers, cannons were added to the ships to protect themselves and to attack other ships. Nowadays, we see the impact this had on our Navy because our battleships still carry massive artillery to defend the nation.
Christopher Columbus traveled the world in search for a new way to Asia in 1492, but instead landed in the Americas. Using gunpowder, the Europeans were able to dominate the world as they could destroy ports and put European bases in place. They began settling in these bases and soon started living in the New World. Now, Europeans were able to trade between each other. This propelled Europe into mass revenue and helped them import raw materials, which then turned into products that were sold to the English, which made them wealthier.
Around this time, a conflict starts between European settlers and Europeans across the Atlantic Ocean, as settlers are being taxed with no say in government. This started the Revolutionary War, which was won by the Americans, using Kentucky long rifles and cannons to overtake the Europeans.
Over the years, many other wars occurred, further developing gunpowder and the artillery used for these massive battles. Bullets are an example of the developing change in gunpowder as they slowly evolved from being round, heavy pellets to gaining an oval shape. The gun's rounds became known for being a projectile, which made loading much easier and the loss of life much less because soldiers were often killed during the reloading process while using muskets. Also, instead of the soldiers having to put packets of powder into their guns, they created the cap, a device at the end of the bullet.
Besides the bullet, gunpowder in World War II, artillery was the main weapon used. In the Pacific Theater, artillery was used to bombard islands the Marines were going to land on to weaken the enemy. In Europe, tanks were what artillery was used in, crippling the panzer divisions of the Nazis.
Other than war, we see that nowadays weaponry has found its way into video games most effectively. Call of Duty, Mass Effect 3, Halo, Minecraft, and many more, with gunpowder being found in guns, cannons, and even creatures that blow up.
As part of our ever-growing and changing world, the more modern use of gunpowder has changed from slowly being used in war and action to become part of our yearly celebrations. Fireworks warm and brighten up our holidays and special events with their bright colors and breathtaking explosions.
Gunpowder has been useful in many ways and has helped change the world. It was, and still is, a tool that can be used to destroy and tear down. However, gunpowder has given people a form to protect them from harm's way, a magnificent sight to see on a special occasion, and even a chance to go into the vast unknowns of space.